Hello guys, my name is Sam and welcome back to SWTOR Central, and in this video I have some news and kind of like speculation I suppose, but it's going to be some pretty goddamn awesome speculation. And to be completely honest, I would be very surprised if any of this speculation didn't really happen. Anyways, we're going to dive into this. So to begin with, I'm going to handle like the short and sweet stuff. So first of all, what we have here is going to be some screenshots from the new Conquest user interface that will be coming with patch 5.8. So as you can see, we do have a pretty new and kind of QOL improvement on the user interface for Conquest. So you can see we've got the different tabs for the guild and the solo play versions of Conquest, and then when we move on we actually see the different kind of like weekly invasions. Well, we see one weekly invasion in action here, and it shows us the 3 planets that we can invade. And if you look closely, you can see that there is a small yield, a medium yield, and a large yield. So this is pretty much how it's going to look. And if you're a smaller guild, you know, you'll be going for the small yield. If you're a big guild, you'll be going for the large or the medium, depending on what kind of competition you're after, I suppose. And then each week these are going to change for a different Conquest weekly. So that's some pretty cool stuff, a nice little sneak peek for you. Okay, so pretty much the rest of this video is going to be about Izax. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is facts for you, and then like the last part of the video is going to be the speculation part. So to begin with, let's talk about what Matt, the lead raid designer, said on stream the other day when they did the stream for patch 5.8. So Matt was talking about the veteran mode version of Izax when it releases on patch 5.8, as we know, which is actually nightmare tuned. So make sure you keep that in mind. It's going to be veteran mode by name, but by actual scale of difficulty is going to be like nightmare. Okay, so nightmare / master mode. Now the reason I'm talking about this is in relation to the new augments that we will be getting with patch 5.9. So quite simply, between patch 5.8 and patch 5.9 there is going to be a grace period of an event kind of happening, and basically what's going to be happening with this is if you can beat Izax in veteran mode difficulty, even though it's master mode tuned, again keep that in mind, between the times of 5.8 and patch 5.9 you will be getting a legacy version of a very rare drop from Izax. You'll also get an achievement and a title and access to a vendor outside of the operation. Now, to put everybody's mind at ease about this reward, you will still be able to get it after patch 5.9. See, this item is actually going to be a very rare drop after patch 5.9, so you still have the chance to be able to get this very rare item. However, the item that you pick up from the boss will not be legacy based, okay? So only during the time between 5.8 and 5.9 will you be able to get a legacy version of whatever super awesome kind of reward this is going to be like. Nobody knows anything about this. Musco actually kind of referenced it to the Wings of the Architect, like it's going to be something as cool as that, I guess, but it's not going to be that, of course. So that would actually lead us to believe that it's going to be a mount, but then a legacy based mount. I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work. Okay, now just swinging back to the augment side of things, because I did mention, you know, in relation to the augments releasing with patch 5.9. Now, what Matt said on stream, once again, is the lead raid designer for the operations in Star Wars: The Old Republic. He said that Izax in veteran mode has a damage output of 136,000 hit points. Like, oh my god, that is a whole lot of damage right there. Now, when these augments were brought up on the forums, it was specifically mentioned that players were going to probably need these augments, again, specifically for this encounter. So at this moment in time, I'm wondering if these new augments are going to be somewhat endurance heavy, or quite a nice boost to endurance to help people get through this fight in the veteran mode / nightmare mode, because of how much crazy high damage Izax is putting out. So I guess you can kind of take this as a disclaimer / warning for anybody who is going to be doing Izax before 5.9 in veteran mode. You're probably going to have a really tough time, because he dishes out so much goddamn damage. And also, just in case anybody was wondering, with the other bosses in this operation dropping a control module which allows you to play as said operation boss on the planet Iokath for world PvP, that kind of thing, there will not be a version of this for Izax, so you will not be able to play as Izax on Iokath. I know it might be disappointing to some of you, But the devs pretty much said that this is because Izax is just too OP. So yeah, Izax is that badass that we don't get to play as him. And the last bit of news for you before we move into the speculation. Make sure you do stick around for that speculation, by the way, guys, because you are going to love it. So a lot of the players have been asking about more class balancing and when more of that is coming, and I can confirm that in patch 5.9 we are going to be getting some changes to utility points. Not so much the actual numbers of class balancing, but changes to utility points and kind of how they work, along with them addressing issues with skank tanks in Star Wars: The Old Republic. So if you don't know what a skank tank is, it is basically when somebody specs as a tank but uses DPS gear. So take my assassin here, for example, who is a tank. I could just basically kit him out on a full set of DPS gear while in tank spec, and that would make me a skank tank. Although it should be noted that this is really something that is done for PvP. So this is going to be addressed in patch 5.9. We do not know what they are doing, but given what was said on the stream about putting DPS gear on will make you explode, which is just a joke on the stream, don't worry, that's not actually going to happen. We can probably assume that it's not going to be anything good happening to skank tanks, and it's probably going to be something that's pretty bad, something that's probably going to negate skank tanking the Star Wars: The Old Republic, since that wasn't the quote-unquote intended use of the class. Okay guys, now let's get into this goddamn speculation, and I promise you, you are going to love this so much. Okay, so to begin with, let me tell you a little story. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the creators on Iokath managed to develop a whole set of godly machines known as Typh, Ivola and Esnir, Nahut, Skyver, and Izax. These were considered to be absolute super weapons, and of course they wanted to do weapon testing. Now we know that the people of Zakuul have the old religion of the gods such as Typh and Skyver, etc. And the way that this old religion took form on Zakuul is when these super weapons were tested there, the godly machines were sent to Zakuul to kind of demonstrate their destructive power. Now, of course, Zakuul has lived to tell the tale. I'm sure that there is much more to that story, but for now, that's all we kind of really need to know. Now, because of this happening such a long time ago, words kind of eventually got twisted, and, you know, the religion kind of just took place as these gods being something to worship. They were almighty and powerful, but there was one god in particular that a certain cult on Zakuul took a very big liking to, and this would be the Heralds of Xildrog, who essentially worshipped and only worshipped Xildrog. Now we know that Xildrog is another name for Izax. Izax is the embodiment of Xildrog, or Xildrog is the embodiment of Izax. It's one of those ways around, but anyways, it doesn't really matter too much. So the Heralds of Xildrog were basically saying that the Serpent Beast will once again rise. Now I was completely under the impression that Theron's little storyline that he's got going on, you know, the traitor storyline, was going to be leading towards something to do with the rise of Xildrog. But now I'm beginning to think otherwise. Okay, so I'm going to move on to something completely different, but don't worry, I'm going to tie this up with a neat and pretty bow at the end. So during the Knights of the Fallen Empire / Knights of the Eternal Throne storyline, we came across something as the Outlander in the swamps of Zakuul. And what we came across was something very big and something very powerful, and also something that was spoken of in legends and questioned to whether or not to even exist. Did you guess what it is? Because if you guessed the gravestone, then you would be goddamn right. We came across the gravestone, something Bob Ross would describe as a happy accident. Up until this point, the Eternal Fleet was an unstoppable force, and all of a sudden, we have this one ship which is capable of taking out quadrants of them at a time. What kind of ship is able to do this? Fast forwarding a little bit, we come to the Dark Sanctuary within the gravestone itself, and inside the Dark Sanctuary we have this ancient monolith. Now the only time we ever saw some action with this ancient monolith was during the fight between Vaylin and Lana Beniko at some point in the Knights of the Eternal Throne storyline. Now it could be misconceived that this ancient monolith was the bomb that was set to self-destruct, but this is something that Koth actually set up, and the ancient monolith was there before Koth managed to set up the bomb, so we can assume here that this ancient monolith has nothing to do with Koth, so just in case anybody wanted to bring that up, it's absolutely not relevant at all. So when we saw this action with the ancient monolith, and we just saw it spiral down into, like, you know, within the gravestone, and it just kind of sealed itself off in a compartment, and then that was pretty much it. Like, we didn't hear anything else about it. In fact, we didn't learn absolutely anything else at all about the gravestone. But here's what we do know. The gravestone is once again something that was considered to be, you know, a legend. It was questioned whether or not to exist. It was powerful enough to at least take on the Eternal Fleet, or a portion of the Eternal Fleet on its own. It probably would get absolutely obliterated if it was left long enough, I suppose, since it needs to recharge its Omni Cannon. But yeah, the gravestone was absolutely humongous. In fact, I would say it was probably big enough to transport other enormous things, you know, such as other super weapons, such as Typh, Ivala, Esnir, Nahut, Skyver. I wonder if this ship was in fact a transportation vessel for the super weapons. Now let's see how we can have this make sense. I know I'm really dragging this out, guys, but trust me, I'm getting there. So let's rewind to where I started. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, super weapons were created, blah blah blah. The creators of Iokath made the super weapons and they wanted to demonstrate its power, so they transported them to Zakul using the gravestone. Something we do know about the gravestone is that it did originate from Iokath, so we can have it make sense like this. The gravestone transports the gods to Zakul, and then of course the gods let off a load of destruction. Okay, now let's actually take a look at Izax. So this is how we have seen him from the developer stream and the screenshots and stuff. Does he look familiar at all to you? Look at his theme, look at his colouring. Look at his claws, and look at the Iron Man type of chest piece that it's got going on. Does it look familiar now? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Izax the Destroyer, aka the goddamn gravestone. I would say that it's very possible that Izax, aka the gravestone, was somehow left on Zakul. I'm not quite sure how the other gods got back to Iokath. I guess we can just make something up for that. But at this point, I am very much leaning towards the side of the gravestone being a kind of transformer and can transform into the Zildrog himself, Izax the Destroyer. If we look at Izax's claws, they look very similar, like almost exactly like the kind of talon slash fins of the gravestone. The rear engine and the Omni Cannon bear a very high amount of resemblance to the chest piece of Izax. Also, Izax can fly, and the gravestone can fly, so there is that. We also see Izax fire at an eternal ship. Like, almost nothing can do that and live to tell the tale, so who knew that this entire time we have been possibly flying around inside of Izax the Destroyer. Now, the only thing that I wouldn't be able to explain about this is just the sheer size of the gravestone. I personally have not seen Izax, so I don't know exactly how big he is going to be. But as we can see here, like, the gravestone is just absolutely humongous, like ridiculously humongous. So if this thing does actually transform into something else, that something else is also going to be pretty goddamn humongous. And given what we've seen, I would say that Izax will fit the bill. So guys, let me know what you think of this. Do you think that the gravestone could be Izax? What do you think to the news that I gave you at the beginning of this video and sort of like the middle? Also, apologies if I dragged on, but I absolutely love speculation and this kind of stuff, and I just can't help myself but talk about it. So yeah, I guess that's why I kind of drag on a little bit. Make sure you all definitely let me know what you think. Thank you all very much for watching, and as always, I will catch you in the next one.